The season has barely begun, and Manchester City already finds itself at the center of attention in the European market, surrounded by speculation that could completely change the face of the team in the coming months. The feeling is that the Etihad's backstage is boiling, with movements involving big names and decisions that may influence not only the club's immediate future, but also its identity in the years to come. Supporters, accustomed to great twists, follow each new update with anxiety, since nothing seems final until the signatures are on paper. The issue that most plays on fans' minds is the goalkeeping situation. What until recently seemed stable, with Ederson consolidated as first choice and James Trafford growing as an alternative, has now turned into a saga of international proportions. The possible arrival of Gianluigi Donnarumma, European champion with Italy and a standout at PSG, raises a series of questions. Would this be the end of the Ederson era? And if so, what would it mean for City's defensive structure? According to sources close to the club, talks between Donnarumma's representatives and City's board are not mere speculation. There is, in fact, concrete interest, sustained mainly by the uncertainty regarding Ederson's future. The Brazilian goalkeeper, who made history under Guardiola, is going through a moment of indecision. Galatasaray has emerged as an unexpected destination, but one gaining strength by the day. Reports suggest Ederson views a move to Turkey favorably, where he would have the chance to be the absolute protagonist in a team competing in the Champions League and with a strong tradition in the European scene. Meanwhile, Donnarumma's agents have shown enthusiasm about the possibility of the Italian keeper arriving in the Premier League. His agent, Enzo Raiola, publicly stressed that the English League would be the natural next step in Donnarumma's career, considering the competitive challenge and global stage. More than that, he made a point of praising his client as someone above average, ready to shoulder any responsibility at top clubs. This type of rhetoric fuels speculation and stirs the imagination of citizens' fans. The plot thickens further when reports emerge that PSG are struggling to renew the Italian's contract. With each week that passes without an agreement, the chances increase of an outcome that could change the balance of power in European football. After all, Donnarumma is still young, but already has enough experience to be considered one of the best in his position. Should he arrive at City, he would share space with James Trafford, who is being groomed for the future but still lacks experience in major matches. On Ederson's side, the news also doesn't stop. Journalist Graham Bailey from GRV Media revealed that Galatasaray have made the Brazilian their priority after considering other names such as Diogo Costa and Jan Sommer. The Turkish board sees City's goalkeeper as an immediate impact signing, capable of raising the team's level and providing security in the most demanding competitions. For Ederson, it would be a chance to breathe new air after intense years in Manchester, where he won titles but also dealt with injuries and the constant pressure of performing at the highest level. If this move goes through, City would not only ensure a smooth transition with Donnarumma, but also create space to rethink their defensive line. This is because, at the same time as attention is drawn to the goal, speculation arises about the departure of Manuel Akanji. The Swiss defender, praised by Guardiola as a hugely versatile player, could also be negotiated with Galatasaray. The Turkish side, aware of their needs, are seeking reinforcements both in goal and defense, directly targeting two players from Pep's current squad. And it's not just in defense that movements are taking place. The name of Savinho, the young Brazilian forward who shone on loan at Girona, is also at the center of a dispute. Tottenham made a heavy move, with an offer of around $50 million, believing they could convince him to swap City's project for more immediate minutes under Thomas Frank. However, a key figure inside the Etihad opposed this transfer outright. The memory of Cole Palmer's departure to Chelsea still stings, and the board does not want to repeat the mistake of letting go of talents who could explode in the future. The resistance to releasing Savinho reflects a change in the club's approach. Unlike in other times, when promising youngsters were sold to raise immediate funds, City now show patience. Guardiola sees the Brazilian as a player capable of providing depth to the squad, rotating with established names such as Doku and Foden. The strategy is clear: maintain offensive diversity without having to invest in extremely expensive reinforcements. This decision directly affects the rumors surrounding Rodrigo of Real Madrid. The forward, valued at around $86 million, had been considered by City as a possible replacement if Savinho were to leave. However, with the Brazilian staying at the Etihad, the pursuit of Rodrigo has cooled. Still, it is impossible to ignore Arsenal's interest, as they are also monitoring the situation and could attempt a market coup. For Guardiola, Rodrigo would be an immediate impact signing, bringing international experience and a Champions League pedigree, where he already boasts dozens of goal involvements. Luka Modric, his Real Madrid teammate, even labeled him a world-class player, proof of the respect the forward has earned within the Madrid squad. However, the combination of high cost and heavy competition makes this deal a complex one. As the names of Ederson, Donnarumma, Savinho, Akanji, and Rodrigo alternate in the headlines, Pep continues trying to balance squad renewal with competitiveness. The Spanish coach has already made it clear that he does not intend to work with a bloated group, preferring to trim the squad to ensure everyone has space and motivation. This mentality explains the recent departures, including the loans of Jack Grealish, Sergio Gomez, Maximo Perrone, and Julian Alvarez, as well as the sales of Kyle Walker and Kevin De Bruyne. This renewal process creates mixed feelings among fans. On the one hand, there is recognition that City constantly need to reinvent themselves to remain at the top of the Premier League and Europe. On the other, there is concern about losing idols and reference points who helped build the victorious identity of recent years. This tension is natural in any successful cycle, but gains even more significance when it involves players of the caliber of Ederson and De Bruyne. The atmosphere behind the scenes is one of expectation. Supporters ask themselves, how far is Guardiola willing to go in this restructuring process? Would Donnarumma's arrival and Ederson's departure be just the beginning of a new phase, or part of a bolder plan that could completely alter the team's backbone? The impact of these moves goes far beyond the transfer market. It strikes directly at the heart of Guardiola's philosophy, which has always sought to anticipate trends and never become complacent, even after major triumphs. The possible replacement of Ederson with Donnarumma would symbolize more than just a simple change of goalkeepers. It would be proof that City intends to remain up to date, renewing key pieces to avoid being overtaken by rivals. The Premier League is ruthless, and any sign of stagnation can be fatal. For the more nostalgic fans, Ederson's departure would be a heavy emotional blow. Since his arrival, the Brazilian has not only guarded the goal, but also revolutionized the way a goalkeeper can take part in the game. His playmaking style with his feet transformed City's build-up into a worldwide reference. Losing that attribute inevitably means altering the way the team initiates its attacks. Donnarumma, while spectacular in his saves, does not possess the same distribution skills, which would require deep tactical adjustments from Guardiola. Even so, the Spanish manager has never shied away from challenges. He has already shown throughout his career that he can reinvent systems and adapt stars to unexpected roles. The arrival of Donnarumma could mark the beginning of a new identity for City, centered on a more traditional goalkeeper between the posts, yet still integrated into a collective system that prioritizes possession and pressing. The fans, used to seeing Guardiola as a visionary, await eagerly to discover what his next great invention will be. Meanwhile, the saga involving Savinho continues to capture the attention of the English media. The Brazilian, who dazzled at Girona, has not hidden his excitement at the prospect of playing in an elite league and establishing himself as a fundamental piece in a bigger project. Tottenham appeared to be the ideal opportunity, offering not only money, but also a starring role. However, City's firm stance made it clear that the club sees in the young forward something far greater than just a marketable asset. This position is explained by the bitter experience of losing Cole Palmer in 2023. The young Englishman, transferred to Chelsea, quickly stood out in London, showing that he might well have had room to shine in Manchester. The mistake is still remembered in the corridors of the Etihad, as an episode that must not be repeated. That is precisely why the club's hierarchy does not wish to let go of Savinho, especially after watching him play with the speed, flair, and technical quality that set him apart. At the same time, keeping Savinho means passing up a huge opportunity to sign Rodrigo. This duality illustrates how City finds itself at a crossroads. Invest in an already established talent with a sky-high market value, or bet on a youngster who could develop into a star under Guardiola's guidance. For now, the choice has been the latter, but that does not rule out the possibility that, in the future, the club might try again for Rodrigo, especially if Real Madrid were to open the door. Another point worthy of note is the situation of Manuel Akanji. The Swiss defender, versatile and reliable, has been a key figure in City's defensive balance. His departure, however, may be closer than many imagine. Galatasaray once again emerges as a protagonist in this story, seeking to sign not only Ederson, but also Akanji. For the Turkish club, it would be a high-level reinforcement package. For City, a change that would demand quick adaptation. Guardiola has already praised Akanji as an incredible player, capable of playing both at center-back and full-back. Losing him would mean giving up tactical flexibility, something that has always been a hallmark of the Spanish coach. Yet some internally argue that such a departure could open space for young defenders to gain experience. This is a recurring strategy of Guardiola, who values compact squads to ensure every player has opportunities. The philosophy is simple. Players who feature regularly are more motivated, which keeps the collective level high. The consequence, however, is the need to deal with constant squad changes, something that has already become routine for the citizens. While all these rumors swirl, the team continues to demonstrate its strength on the pitch. The 4-0 thrashing of Wolves, with brilliant debuts from Ryan Cherki and Tajon Buchanan, proved that City remains a machine for creating talent and integrating reinforcements almost instantly. Haaland, as usual, left his mark, reinforcing week by week the idea that he is the most lethal striker of the moment. Even Gary Neville, a frequent critic of the club, admitted to underestimating the squad's strength this season. Savinho's absence from that match was noted and further fueled speculation. After all, when a player is left out of the squad amid so many rumors, fans quickly assume a deal is imminent. But in this case, everything suggests his absence was more strategic than a farewell sign. Guardiola prefers to shield his youngsters during turbulent times, sparing them from media pressure while negotiations remain unresolved. Within this context, City supporters are living a roller coaster of emotions. In a matter of days, they may bid farewell to historic idols, welcome international stars, and discover that young talents will assume unexpected prominence. This instability is, paradoxically, what keeps the club so competitive. Guardiola has already shown he knows how to turn uncertainty into opportunity, and City appears ready to embrace that philosophy once more. At the same time, one cannot ignore the impact this all has on the Premier League as a whole. Rivals such as Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Manchester United are closely watching every move from the citizens, aware that any signing or sale could alter the balance of power. Arsenal's interest in Rodrigo, for instance, is a direct response to City's approach for the Brazilian. This battle on and off the pitch only intensifies the rivalry and increases the pressure for immediate results. What is at stake is not just the conquest of trophies, but also the control of the narrative. City wants to show it remains the most innovative and prepared club in English football, while its rivals aim to prove there are weaknesses to exploit. The transfer window, in this sense, becomes a battlefield as strategic as the Premier League pitches. The coming days promise to be intense. The outcome of Ederson's situation, the possible arrival of Donnarumma, the decision regarding Savinho and Akanji's future are all pieces of a puzzle that must be assembled with surgical precision. Any miscalculated move could jeopardize the balance of a squad that still dreams of repeating Champions League glory and maintaining its domestic dominance. What does seem certain is that City is not prepared to adopt a passive stance. Even if Guardiola argues for stability, the board is showing an appetite for bold moves. This combination of prudence and audacity is what keeps the club in constant evolution. The fans may suffer from the uncertainty, but they know that, in the end, the greater goal is to keep City at the very top. One of the points that most draws attention in this new phase of Manchester City is the contrast between stability and transformation. The club has won practically everything in recent years, establishing a hegemony that few teams in history have managed to repeat. However, what we now see is a process of renewal which, instead of weakening the team, could actually be the fuel to keep it competitive at the highest level. Guardiola knows that, in modern football, becoming complacent is a fatal risk. The possible departure of Ederson, for example, represents this idea of painful but necessary renewal. The Brazilian has become a symbol of an era, but he also faces the weight of time, injuries, and the need for new experiences. Donnarumma emerges as the natural heir to a position that demands absolute security. If the swap really does happen, City will let go of an icon but gain youth and solidity for the years ahead. The balance between emotion and reason seems to tilt towards the latter, something typical of the club's philosophy. Savinho is another example of how City balances past, present, and future. Still at the start of his career, the Brazilian has the potential to be polished until he becomes a central piece in Guardiola's system. Keeping the youngster despite a tempting offer from Tottenham shows that the club prefers to invest in talents who can be valued internally rather than seek external solutions. This patience may prove decisive, especially in an era in which transfer fees are reaching almost unreal figures. Rodrigo, in turn, symbolizes the constant desire to reinforce the squad with elite names. City knows that, if needed, they can pursue the forward at Real Madrid, but they also understand that every step must be calculated. The high cost and competition from English rivals make this negotiation a financial risk. That is why betting on Savinho now could open the way to, in the future, invest heavily in another big name without compromising budgetary balance. Akanji finds himself in a similar situation. The defender has earned his place and shown quality, but he also represents a possible business opportunity. For Galatasaray, his versatility is gold. For City, it could be the chance to clear the path for new defensive signings. Guardiola knows that in losing Akanji, he would also lose a reliable piece. But that loss could mean opportunities for youngsters or even a structural change in the tactical system. Pep's philosophy is clear. He prefers a leaner, more competitive group in which everyone feels part of the rotation. There is no room for complacent players. This model, which may seem risky, is precisely what has sustained the citizens in so many successful campaigns. By giving opportunities to all, Guardiola keeps the squad hungry for victories and ready to compete in any scenario. On the pitch, this philosophy is already beginning to show results. The thrashing of Wolves served as a warning to rivals. Even amid so much market uncertainty, City remains a machine. Cherki and Buchanan, newly arrived, have already integrated naturally, proving that adaptation under Guardiola can be quicker than one might imagine. Haaland, with his nose for goal, reaffirmed his status as a lethal weapon. For those who thought the citizens might lose strength, the answer came in emphatic fashion. Even so, it is impossible to ignore the shadows hovering in the background. The transfer window is far from over, and any hasty decision could alter the course of the season. The supporters feel it. There is excitement, but also a tinge of anxiety. The club seems to be walking a fine line between maintaining its winning identity and risking bold moves that may or may not work out. The external pressure is also mounting. Rivals such as Arsenal and Liverpool are watching every move, ready to exploit any weakness. Arsenal in particular sees in Rodrigo an opportunity to strengthen an attack that needs more depth. If they manage to get ahead of City, they could not only improve their squad but also weaken a direct rival. This silent war between the giants of the Premier League goes far beyond the pitch, and in this scenario, Guardiola finds himself at the center of everything. He is not just the team's manager but also the figure who gives direction to the sporting project. His decisions influence not only the present but also the future of the club. At every press conference, his words about Ederson, Donnarumma, Savinho, or Akanji are scrutinized under a magnifying glass in search of clues about the next steps. For the fans, Listening to Pep is like trying to decipher a riddle. He says a lot, but rarely reveals the full strategy. Meanwhile, the players live with uncertainty. For some, like Donnarumma, City represents an opportunity for growth and glory. For others, like Ederson and Akanji, it could mean the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new journey. For youngsters like Savinho, the moment is about proving they have the potential to be protagonists in the future. Each of them carries their own dilemma, and all know that their choices will affect the collective. The narrative, therefore, becomes even more fascinating because there is no obvious outcome. Anything can happen. City could lose idols and gain new stars. They could bet on youngsters or invest in established names. They could keep their base or radically change course. This uncertainty, far from being a problem, is precisely what keeps the fans glued to every update, every rumor, every word from Fabrizio Romano or Guillem Balaguer. At the end of the day, what is at stake is the continuity of a dynasty. City know they have reached the top, but they also know that staying there is even more difficult. Guardiola is aware that his team will constantly be hunted by rivals and, for that reason, cannot afford to stagnate. Renewal is inevitable, even if painful. The next chapters of this story depend on decisions that will be taken in just a few days. The supporters, anxious, can only wait. But one thing is certain, whether with Ederson or Donnarumma, with Savinho or Rodrigo, with Akanji or another defender, City will continue to be a protagonist in European football. And that, ultimately, is what matters most. And with all these twists and turns, it is clear that Manchester City is about to write a new chapter in its history. What will happen with Ederson? Will Donnarumma really arrive at the Etihad? Will Savinho remain as a jewel shaped by Guardiola, or will we see an unexpected move in the market? The answers are coming, and every detail could completely change the season. If you want to keep following every update closely, every confirmed rumor and every decision that could transform City, don't forget, leave your like right now and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss a single piece of news and will stay with us through all the emotions of this journey.